Okay, so picture this. You've got a 95-year-old great-grandmother, frail, using a walking frame to get around. And then imagine her tasered by the police.
Oh, wow.
This isn't some, crazy movie plot. This actually happened in Australia. And the officer involved was just found guilty of manslaughter.
Wow.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. So we got excerpts from this news article here that lays out, the events of what happened, the trial, the reactions and everything. And we're going to really dive into this one today.
Yeah, this is a case that brings up so many different issues, aging, dementia, law enforcement, a lot of challenges to think about here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's start with just what happened. Okay, We're talking about Clare Nowland, 95 years old, living with dementia in this place called Yallambee Lodge in Cooma, Australia.
Right.
She had a steak knife. And the staff, they call the police.
And that's, that Paul is what starts this a whole chain of events that leads to, this situation that we're talking about now. The news article really highlights this kind of shocking image. You've got a 45-kilogram woman with a walking frame, and then you've got this police officer with a taser.
Right.
And we know from the video footage that the officers asked Miss Nowland to drop the knife 21 times.
Oh, wow.
21 times. And then it's captured on video. The officer says, "Nah, bugger it," before firing the taser.
Oh, my gosh. That detail is just chilling. Miss Nowland died a week later. And the police are saying the fatal injury was actually from the fall, not directly from the taser.
Right.
But the officer, Kristian White, was found guilty of manslaughter.
Right.
And the jury deliberated for 20 hours.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. Makes you think about what they were going through.
Yeah.
What does that tell us about their thought process?
Yeah, it definitely suggests that they believe that even if the taser wasn't the direct cause of death, using it was a criminally negligent act. So in other words, the officer's actions in that moment, fell so far below the standard of care that it was considered a crime.
Yeah, I see. So how are the police responding to this verdict?
Well, the police commissioner's statement in the article is pretty direct. He says this should never have happened.
Right.
And we also know that there was a review of taser policy and training back in January of this year, so before this incident even happened.
Wow.
But no changes were made, and now White's employment is under review.
It's just crazy to think that they review these policies and nothing changed, and then this happens,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, were those policies and training programs enough? Did they really take into account how to deal with these vulnerable people, especially people with dementia?
Right.
Could something else have been done to prevent this? It's something we need to be talking about.
Yeah, for sure. The article also talks about the defense's argument, which is basically that if someone has a knife, they're a threat, and that means the taser was justified.
Yeah, and that's a very compelling argument, and it gets to the core of these really difficult questions, is that always the right way to look at it? Does a knife automatically equal a serious threat in every single situation?
Mm-hmm.
How much should things like age frailty and especially dementia factor into how an officer decides how dangerous a situation is? This case is forcing us to really confront these questions.
Absolutely. This case is so complex. There's so much to think about. Was the officer's response justified? How do we balance keeping people safe with, treating people with compassion, especially when they're vulnerable?
Right.
It really makes you think about police training and the use of force in these situations,
Definitely. I think you're right. This incident really calls for a wider conversation about how we as a society, and especially law enforcement, interact with older people, particularly those with dementia. It forces us to really look at the potential consequences of using force, even when the goal is to de-escalate the situation.
This deep dive has given us so much to consider. But here's a final thought for everyone listening. If you are on that jury facing that incredibly difficult decision, what would have mattered most to you in making your decision?